As a young academic, many moons ago, my first lecture was with a relatively large class of 30 students. As I was setting up the computer to project my PowerPoint slides, and I noticed that students was not settling down while a few were still roaming outside. I nevertheless projected the first slide and introduced myself. A gradual silence came over the class with a few giggles. One of the students put up his hand to alert me that they were waiting for Dr. Anthony Brown, almost indicating it can't be me, or I must be in the wrong venue. To their surprise, I responded, "That is correct." The students again put up his hand to ask if I am Dr. Anthony Brown, and I responded with a question, "Why?" By now, my question led to more giggles. The student mumbled, "Impossible." This is where I realized there is some perception about who Dr. Anthony Brown may be. I started to ask who they thought is Dr. Anthony Brown. One said, "I thought he is a British man with round glasses and a squeaky voice," while another said, "She expected an older man." And then I asked who they thought I was. Another student at the back responded, "I thought you the IT guy." Amazed, I wanted to know why. Again, the response came, "You are too young to be a doctor." Another student said, "But you are black with a white name," while another said, "But you have dreadlocks." I wanted to know, what about the dreadlocks? With more interesting responses, "Lecturers don't smoke ganja," a local reference for cannabis. This was quite an awakening moment that there is a particular image of a lecturer, and I certainly transgressed with my presentation. My black body, young body, uncommon doctor title and name on the day carried a certain knowledge more so. My body started to teach before I could start with my first lesson. My body disrupted the norm of the hegemonic professor identity. It interfered with the learning space. I learned that the classroom is more than the four walls, and the projected notes that my body itself is part of the classroom. In fact, my body could be the classroom. Years later, I took up a new position at another institution. My first class was during a cold winter's morning. I decided to put on a shawl similarly to the one that I have on today. Ironically, the topic for the lesson focused on identity, self, and society. One of the brave students in the class raised his hand to ask, "What do you call the wrapping over your shoulders, sir?" I responded, "It's a shawl." And his next question was, "Isn't it something worn by women?" It opened a whole new discussion of male and female designated clothing, which further developed in a discussion of masculinity and femininity. I then asked if the shawl takes away my masculinity, of which one of the male students responded, "He will never wear a shawl. It is just too gay." Wow! Instantly, we navigated into a new discussion of sexuality. Who is gay? What makes you gay? How do you identify as a gay person, etc.? And boom, the next question was, "Sir, are you gay?" The body yet again had the opportunity to become its own classroom. I wanted to know why the question, and the answer was, "Your shawl." I decided to prompt a little bit more on the topic and asked if it would matter if I am gay. One student said, "I have never seen a gay professor. It was an impression that heterosexuality is the only acceptable, esteemed, privileged, and valorized identity. At the same time, those who deviate from this norm are doomed, justified to be looked down, and in some cases be fatally removed from the surface of this universe." A debate among students erupted about gayness as an un-African identity, an abomination, and something abnormal. It was emotional, tensed, at times verbally aggressive, with some defending and others denouncing it. At this point, I introduced the South African Constitution, which acknowledges, affirms, protects sexual and gender diversity, the South African School Act that prohibits discrimination, and the Educators' Code of Conduct that calls for an inclusive and respectful learning environment. It confronted these aspiring teachers about their future professional identity, but also their social responsibility to a diverse nation. One of the female students wanted to know if I was really gay. My response, I don't know what really gay means, but yes, I am gay. One of the females at the back of the class shouted, "Oh, what a waste." And another said, "But he looks like a real man." This reminded me of my very first lecture in higher education, with my dreadlocks and skinny jeans and an image that disrupted the identity of what a professor should and should not look like. I consciously realized that my body and its presentation has the power to teach, to disrupt, to question, and to transform. The classroom teaching tools go beyond the computer, beyond the lecture slides, the voice, and the chalkboard. It certainly includes the body of the lecturer, the body of other students, bodies in our textbooks. As the debate continued to who is gay in the African classroom, a cisgender appearing student raised her hand and said, "Your description of a lesbian person does not fit me. I look like your everyday female, but I'm not. I'm a lesbian in a loving relationship with another woman." One male student in class shouted, "Unbelievable," while another invited her to be his girlfriend so that he could fix her. This pedagogical moment made me ask how bodies could position, challenge, and change the status quo. The body confronted and generated a dialogue which stimulated reflections about deep-seated, normative, and often hostile perceptions of being, personhood, identity, self, and the collective. The body as a pedagogical tool in the form of a black gay professor with a shawl, a young lecturer with dreadlocks and a perceived European name, a cisgender appearing lesbian student not only disrupted the status quo, but liberated and reshaped pervasive perceptions of being and difference. The expression of the body and its pedagogical power challenged students to examine and rethink their power from unearned privileges of hegemony, normativity, and mainstream views. In a lesson about the self in society, the body as a teaching space calls on an awareness for diverse ways of being, and it may not be comfortable or palatable, but the acknowledgement of the existence and belonging is fundamental. The body as a pedagogical tool in and outside the classroom charge all of us to become more learned about our rainbow diversity, to heal and to become more human and more real. The body as a pedagogical tool should be unapologetic and intentional in creating diverse ways of being, and in so doing, generate uncomfortable conversations that would deconstruct compulsory embodiments that dominate, oppress, and discriminate. These conversations not only are uncomfortable, but relevant in the classroom discussions. It demonstrates how students can listen and hear each other, value the diversity of expressions, and encourage excitement in the learning process for the real world. the body as the pedagogical tool does not only offer knowledge to formal institutions of learning, but the body in its presentation become moments of transformation around the dinner table, the barbecue fire, recreational parks, malls and supermarkets, where difference is often insulted, ridiculed, and reduced. These are the spaces where currencies are handed over to dehumanize and to demoralize certain bodies that do not conform. Allow and be proud of the body of difference. When we overtly celebrate different bodies inside our home environments, our classrooms, our religious spaces, cultural settings, we prepare a celebration of life in an inclusive, united, respectful, and socially just community. Thank you so much.